The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. The Dice Tower, episode 607.
D is for dragons.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Tom's cloning dinosaurs, and I've got mice on my table again. Plus, we answer some questions from the mailbag about signs that a game is about to go out of print, our favorite board game components, and exit plans for getting out of a game you aren't enjoying. Then we continue our alphabetical journey with our top 10 games that start with the letter D. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Scorpius to my Albus, Tom Vassell.
I'm never quite sure with you what everything means.
This one's a little more obscure.
This is not Albus Dumbledore, right?
It's not Albus Dumbledore, it's Albus Potter and Scorpius Malfoy.
I don't even know who they are.
Yeah, you haven't read Book 8.
No, because it's written like a play style. I don't want to read something written that way. I really don't like that. Reading a book, a novel written that way.
It is a little odd to read it that way. But I got to see it that way, which is pretty cool.
Well, that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, watching a play is different than reading one.
Right.
I have read some good plays in my life, for sure. But they're usually plays that don't involve any kind of action.
That's true. There are a lot of things when you're reading. We're of course talking about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which you can get as a book. That's just of script, publication of the script. It's a little weird to read it, and they'll just say stuff, magical things that happen on stage, and you're like, whoa, oh, okay, that's just something that happens, I guess.
Folks, I have to say, it is the most busiest month of the year, except for maybe December, but probably not true. May is that time of year where all schools end. Colleges have graduations. They decide to do programs at school that need to showcase every kid in the school so that you have to go and sit there for a really long time for a scant 10 seconds of seeing your beloved child. There are picnics. There are farewell parties. There are early days off from school. There are half days for no apparent reason. And if you don't have kids, there's still traffic. There's things going on in May. May is crazy. And then June is the even crazier convention-wise, so there's a lot of things going on there. But I don't mind because it's spring, and spring is good.
I do appreciate the weather, for sure.
Although along with spring comes spring colds, apparently, so if I'm sounding slightly stuffed up, it's because that's my attitude. I mean, that's how I'm feeling.
Yes. Excellent.
Welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Tom Vassell.
Hi there. I'm Eric Summerer.
And we are back. And so lots of things going on. We really want to invite you to the Dice Tower Con, which is happening this July. There are still tickets left, and you can still jump in on that. You're like, what am I going to do for my summer vacation? Dice Tower Con would be a really fun place to go to.
Indeed.
Imagine gaming all day, and then when it's time to go to bed, still gaming. That's what Dice Tower Con is like. And if July is just too close to make that decision, don't forget that you can come on a Dice Tower retreat. That's in September. It's a more personal thing. I think right now there's like 120 people coming, so your chance of playing a game with me there is extremely high. So Dice Tower retreat is in September, and when the fall is coming and school is starting and you just want to get away and play some games, check both those out at DicetowerCon.com and DicetowerRetreat.com.
Nice.
So, I got back from L.A. and did some filming there with Above Board.
Yeah, I saw those pictures. It looked like a lot of fun.
It looked like a lot of money, man, is what I thought. Like, one of their cameras cost more than the Dice Tower.
Whoa, wow.
Yeah, all those kind of professionalism and people walking around. They had a lot of people involved with it who have known each other for a while, so a few of them were gamers. but most of them were like people who acted together in a stage house and comedians back and forth. I didn't really know anybody. They did a recorded clip with the guy who was the hologram doctor in Deep Space Nine.
Robert Picardo.
Yes. And then they had one gentleman there who was there. I actually met him. He was from, whose line is it anyway?
Ooh. Greg Proops, Colin Mockery, Brad Sherwood, Wayne Brady.
It was Gary Anthony Williams.
Oh, yes.
So he was there, and he did a little, skit with them and stuff. So I talked to him very briefly, and just met some people. But it was a lot of fun. There's some publishers showed up. Kristen Looney was there, and a few other publishers came by, and Chaz Marler, Rodney Smith came by, but he waited till I left to show up because that's how we roll.
Right.
So that was fun. And then I'm looking around and going, wow, when you guys listen to this podcast, in 1 week, I will be in England.
All right. UK Gaming Expo.
That's right. So if you're in anywhere in that vicinity there, come on out. We're going to have a table there where we're just going to be gaming with people, and you can come by and see us at that table. We're doing a couple shows there, so that will be a lot of fun. One of these days, Eric's going to come to the UK Games Expo.
I would enjoy it. I've never been to England for more than like a flight layover.
Yeah, so we've got to make that happen. And after the UK Games Expo, well, at the same time, there's the Come On Expo, so Sam and Roy will be at that if you're in Atlanta for that time frame. Eric will be. Are you going to any Tabletop Day event?
I'm thinking that's June 1st or something, right? It's like the first.
Yes.
I think I might be going to the Portal here in Connecticut. It's on my calendar. I haven't, firmed up any official plans, but I am planning to attend one of the events.
I have to say, I have a lot of respect for what Will Wheaton put together with Tabletop, and I'm glad that Tabletop Day started, but this has to be the weakest Tabletop Day ever run.
Really?
There is so little fanfare about it. So lots of stores aren't even participating. It's being run at the same time as two conventions. There's just not much buzz. Anything that's being run is mostly by stores just doing it.
Right. Well, it's sort of, the momentum of not having or having a program that's actively in production or on the quote-unquote air. Without that happening, you sort of lose some of the momentum of Tabletop Day, don't you?
Sure. So, I hope it goes well for all the stores that it's at. So we'll see how that works. After Tabletop Day, and after those are gone by, then June calms down a little bit until my wife and I will be heading to Korea/China. We're going to ConCon, not the one that Eric goes to. That's
right.
CONNCON. We're going to KHANCON.
This is like Star Trek Con.
Not quite. Not everything is Star Trek, Eric.
But what if it should be?
No, it shouldn't be. But the would you want to wear the clothes they wear in Star Trek?
Not the first version of like the next gen uniform. That seems like a really uncomfortable jumpsuit. But maybe later, some of the other uniforms look fun.
Yeah, I guess when I think Star Trek, I think next gen. So that's probably what it is. I was looking at those jumpsuits like, nope. But then Dice Tower Con in July. So there's a lot of things coming up. So that we'll be at, and hopefully we'll see you guys at those. But enough about what is coming up. Eric, tell me about a game you've played. With a very weird name.
With an odd name. Yes, this is called Dice of Pirates. It's a small game. In fact, it comes in a little tin. In fact, it's right here. That's the sound of the tin makes. It's that's radio right there. Dice of Pirates has 7 dice inside, some tokens, and like a little pirate ship. And if the Dice of name sounds familiar, you may have remembered that I talked about a game called Dice of Crowns some time ago. I don't know when.
Okay. Now that's I thought the name sounded familiar.
Yes. So this is basically the same game with a little bit of a twist. It's from Thing 12 Games. You've got that mess of dice, 7 dice, and you're going to roll them all on your turn, or really all the dice that are available, because some of them can get locked from turn to turn. But basically, you roll them all, and they have symbols on them. They're all custom dice. And some of them have the Kraken on them. Those are locked, so you can't continue to roll those. And if you get 3, you're going to bust on that particular turn. You can also get a symbol that's gold, and they can earn, you can earn tokens that eventually are victory points at the end of the game. And there's also symbols that allow you to battle other players, so you can sort of fire cannons back and forth and challenge other players to like a roll-off to try and take some of their tokens, their victory points. And you can also, if you get ships, there's ship symbols that you actually have to give to other players. They then get to roll them, and based on what they roll, they can either give them to other players, lock them for other players, or have to give them right back to you based on what they roll. So there's a lot of passing and rolling and passing and locking and allocating. And ultimately, you're trying to get, I think it's three victory points to win the game. No, 7.
6.
7.
Oh.
It's 7. 7 of these little victory tokens to win. And it plays relatively quickly. Just like the Dice of Crowns, which had a very similar mechanism. Sometimes you'd have dice that you have to give to somebody else, and they roll them, and then stuff happens based on what they roll. This one goes a little longer because of that battling concept. If you do the pirate ship battle, basically you continue rolling until all you have left are coins or pirate symbols. And then you sort of resolve the pirate battle and see what happens. I think the pirate battle slows this down a little bit. So I think I prefer the Dice of Crowns version, which just seems a little cleaner and quicker and simpler. The whole plunder aspect here it's thematic, sure, but if you aren't married to the pirate theme, I think Dice of Crowns is the better, cleaner game. There is a way you can mix the two, which I haven't actually tried. They call it Plunder the Crown. And you take both games together and you sort of mix up the mechanisms. And I think you basically play Dice of Crowns, but then when you have battles, you resolve it using the pirate dice. But anyway, it's still quick, light fun. I enjoyed it, just not quite as much as Dice of Crowns. That's Dice of Pirates.
So why would you own both?
Why would I own both? I probably wouldn't, unless which I haven't tried the combination game. If you like the combo game, well, sure, then you want both sets. But yeah, I don't need to have pirates around if I'm keeping crowns.
All right, I want to talk a bit about something that's similar to pirates. No, I can't even do a segue here. Never mind. I want to talk about my first Castle Panic. And I noticed when I reviewed this on the internet, my reviews was like, my first Castle Panic review. And then it's like, well, then here's my second Castle Panic. Anyway, review. So Castle Panic, I'm sure you've played this, Eric.
I have played Castle Panic, but not my first Castle Panic.
Sure, but Castle Panic is if we were grouping all the cooperative games in existence together, Castle Panic, without the expansions, would be amongst the easier, lighter side of things.
Absolutely.
The expansions make it more difficult, for sure, and make it very challenging, but base game, while you can lose it for sure, is something that you could play with kids and get away with, just having a great time together, defending a castle against waves of invading goblins and orcs and stuff like that.
Yes, when this my first version was announced, I sort of said, well, isn't the original already the simple game? So how does this make it simpler?
Well, this makes it simpler because this is a game for like 4 and 5-year-olds.
Ah.
So it really brings it down. It's a single track heading to the castle, and each turn the monsters march forward a space, and on your turn you draw a card, then you play a card that matches a symbol next to a space, and it kills the monster or throws them in jail, whatever, of that that's in that space. So if you have a blue circle, you can play that on a blue circle space. If you have a red square, you play it on a red square space. There are also cards that are like red, and you can play them on any of the red spaces, or squares, and you can play them on any of the square spaces.
Got it.
So there's a few simple decisions to be made, but it teaches the kids when to play the card at the right time and to stop these guys from getting to the castle. You should probably hit the guy in the lead, right? You know, or maybe you should hit one who has a special power or whatever. And it works really well. I played it with my 5-year-old, and he had fun. He's not the smartest cookie when it comes to games, and usually games devolve into some sort of battle, no matter what it is. I don't know where he gets that from. But this one, he was able to grasp the rules. I was playing with him, of course, and it was good. So it's definitely for the younger set. I would say 4, 5, 6. Maybe 7, you know, depending, and maybe 3, but you know, it fits in that group. And then after they play for a while, you could graduate them to Castle Panic. So it's great. There's not a lot of games made by companies for young kids. Haba does it. You can buy junk at Hasbro.
Yes.
So I'm glad something like this exists. So this is from Fireside Games, my first Castle Panic.
Neat. Let's go for a slightly more complicated cooperative game. Mice and Mystics Downwood Tales hit the table for us recently. This is the expansion, big box expansion for Mice and Mystics, which is...
This is the second expansion, right?
This was, Heart of Glorm was the first expansion, which was a small box. Downwood Tales basically was the same size as the original. Not a standalone, though. You still need the original game to play Downwood Tales.
Does that mean there's more content then?
There is a good amount of new... It's an entire new storybook. A very thick-bound storybook with a bunch of new components, several new playable characters. There's a snake in there, lots of new mechanisms and tiles and cards and all sorts of stuff. We originally, when this was released a few years ago, we didn't actually finish the campaign. My son and I's schedule got a little different, and we didn't have the opportunity to play as often, and so it sort of fell by the wayside. And now that my youngest is old enough to play as well, we've tried to resurrect it and get back into the game.
Ooh, the sequel.
Yes, and it's sort of apropos because I believe, at least if I recall seeing a press release from Plaid Hat Games, Downwood Tales is now available again. It's been out of print for a while, and they finally got some new copies in, so that's kind of cool. Going back to a game that we played a lot but haven't played in a few years is difficult. I'm sure we've all had this experience where you used to know the rules in and out to something, and then you come back to it after not playing it for a while, and you have to be like, wait, how does this work again? And I thought I remembered how everything worked together, but, I got to look up the rule about how bad guys move, how minions move around. And having played now other iterations of Jerry Hawthorne's games, Stuffed Fables and Comanauts, I can see how he's refined things a good bit. And some of the rough edges of Mice and Mystics have been whittled down in those later games. So stuff like, you have to roll an attack with a bunch of dice, and then the bad guy gets to defend. And so you can have a bunch of back and forth spending actions to do absolutely nothing as they roll shields and stuff. And things flow a lot faster in Stuffed Fables and Comanauts. But I still enjoy the whole world, the way the tiles all fit together. You got this big stack of tiles, and they can all be assembled in various ways to make different landscapes and scenarios and all this stuff. And it's the amount of play in these boxes is extensive, which I really appreciate. My youngest did enjoy it, and he's looking forward to continuing along. But it's a lengthy experience. We actually weren't able to complete the first chapter because, again, it was bedtime. And so we had to take pictures and see where we were and wait till we moved off of a tile. It's still a great game, but it is certainly one that's showing its age more when compared to the storybook games that are far more recent. Still, love Mice and Mystics Downwood Tales.
Well, I was fully expecting you to like this game.
Can't imagine that I wouldn't.
Duelosaur Island is the 2-player version of Dinosaur Island. And I hadn't played it for a while. It was kind of sitting on my shelf, and so I decided to pull it off and give it a whirl. And I think I was expecting a 2-player Dinosaur Island, but it's not. It's the same theme, but it's a much simpler game, and I'm not upset about that.
Huh.
Essentially, each turn, you roll some dice and put out a couple assistant cards, and you take turns going back and forth drafting these dice. I'll take this die, you'll take this die, I'll take this die. But the person who's the active player will associate each die with a bonus. So if you pick that die, you might get 2 coins, and if you pick that die, you might get an extra gene. And so you're collecting these different DNA of, it's ordinary DNA and expert DNA. There's 6 different DNAs. And then you're using the DNA to put dinosaurs into your park. Or you're also getting money along the way, and you're using money to put rides and attractions in your park. Rides and attractions bring you more money and a few points. Dinosaurs bring you a lot more points and visitors to the park, but also bring you danger that if you don't use the money to buy more security, they might eat some people. So in the very first game of this I played with Melody, and who's home from college, huzzah.
Nice.
And she played a very, very safe game. Like, not one person was ever eaten in her park. On the other hand, my park was slightly more dangerous. I would say maybe 10 people got eaten over the course of the game.
Okay.
So she won, but only by a few points. And I was very pleased with that because it showed that both ways there was some, thought to that back and forth. Mm-hmm. And so the game plays very quickly. The only analysis paralysis that might occur is when you're first assigning those dice to the bonuses, like, ooh, which die will I put where? But it's pretty simple. Like, ooh, I really want this yellow DNA, that there's only one die. So I'm going to put it on the space that gives no bonus. And I know Eric won't take that because he'll think that that's not as good as taking the pink DNA plus 2 coins. Mm-hmm. But then Eric takes it because he also wanted the yellow DNA, and then I stab him with my dino tooth that I had under the table.
Okay.
And I have no idea why the game got so violent so quickly.
That escalated quickly.
You also could take assistants who give you special abilities, and there's funny stuff. I actually enjoyed the puns on the names. Like the restaurant was called Clever Grill.
Ah, nice.
And things like that. I don't know. There was DNA Nachos or D Nachos, I guess.
D Nachos. Yes.
Anyhow, it's a quick game, but it fits in the. It's a little bigger and takes up more table space than, say, something like Lost Cities, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. So that is Duelosaur Island. See, I think Dinosaur Island's a better game overall, but if I have 2 players, Duelosaur Island's a really good kind of 45 or 30-minute to 45-minute game to play.
I have a copy of Duelosaur, and I have not yet had a chance to play it, but I really do want to try it. It looks very cool. Last thing I want to talk about is not a game yet, but it is a prediction. I think we will be seeing this IP show up as a game very soon. Let me explain. We were in New York over the past week or so, and we attended a theatrical event called Pip's Island. This is like a interactive adventure for kids. They lead you into up an elevator after you've paid your admission ticket, and you get suited up in a special jacket with a wristband that lights up and does cool things, and they lead the group of kids from room to room. There are puppets, there's special effects, there's sound, there's music, there's actors that do stuff, and the whole thing is like living in a Ryan Lockett board game. You've got all of these different characters on this island, including Ampiers Watson and the evil Jules Volter, and he's trying to take over the island, and you're trying to collect 5 sparks that will allow you to defeat the bad guy. And there's hide-and-seek quests, there's building quests. There's they have to like decorate a cake at one point. You're in an airship at one point and flying the darn thing. This was really impressive for my kids. They loved it. But this so feels like it's going to be a cooperative game in about, 2-3 years. So if there is a cooperative version of Pip's Island where you have to run around and collect sparks to defeat Jacques Volter, I'm calling it right here. It's going to be seen soon. And I sort of told the folks running this, I'm like, this should be a board game. And they're like, Yeah, we're working on that sort of thing.
Yeah, right. It's going to end up being a Hasbro. Who cares?
Oh, I hope it's not. I hope there's some hobby publisher that's already working on this that just can't talk about it yet. But if you are in New York, it is one of the less expensive theatrical things to do in the Times Square area. It is a blast for those kids to go on this adventure. It feels like they're in the middle of this fantasy world. Pip's Island, it's called. Thumbs up for that, and I'm looking forward to what they do game-wise in the future.
I think you just wanted to talk about going to this event. It doesn't look cheap, though. It's just like, it's $49. Well, $39 if you buy it online. But that's per person, right? So if I'm going to take my kid, that's $80 for an hour.
It is, yes. But it's cheaper than going to see a Broadway show.
Oh, Eric, do you know how many Broadway shows I've seen in my life?
One?
Zero.
Oh.
I've only ever seen them online. I love them. I love musicals. I think they're fantastic. And I thought about going. I could go to the one in Miami. And I look at the prices every time. And I weep a little because, A, I won't go by myself. And to take my wife, it's like $300. You can't use. That's like the most expensive entertainment I can think of that I would go to.
It is very expensive, yes.
Oh, well. Maybe like for my 40th anniversary.
Well, there you go. You just celebrated number 20, didn't you?
I did. So that's what I'm saying.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. So in 20 years, my kids will all be in their 30s. Maybe they will buy my wife and I tickets to a Broadway show.
There you go. Start saving now.
That is like we when my mom was still alive back, I think it was for my parents' 40th anniversary, I think. Maybe it was their 30th. Yeah, it was their 30th. So they had their 30th anniversary, and so we kids all put our money together and bought them a brand new computer. And my mom was like, "Oh, that's so fantastic. This reminds me of my friend, blah, blah, blah. Her kids, they bought them a house." We're like, "Thanks, Mom, but you got a computer." We had to like argue over that because some people were like, "I can't afford 1/5 of a computer." Alrighty. Well, let's get to... Oh, I have one more game, don't I?
You do?
Yes, okay. Well, I haven't talked about this one on air yet at all, have I?
I don't think so, no.
So the Transformers trading card game. Well, it's more than might meet, an eye.
Yeah, uh-huh.
I've always been a fan of Transformers. I have not watched all the TV shows over the years. I watched it when I was a kid. When I was just in college, I watched the Beast Wars.
Oh, I love Beast Wars. I wrote a
and,
college paper on Beast Wars.
Every time I think I'm a little nerdy.
I had my thesis was that it was one of the first shows to treat the older audience, the original audience, seriously, and it wasn't just a kid's show. It was actually written specifically for fans of the original from the 1980s.
Well, yes, and this particular game, the Transformers trading card game, definitely is for the nostalgic audience. It has nothing to do with the Michael Bay movies, as far as I can tell, or even the much nicer new Bumblebee movie.
Yes.
It's really great artwork. And so you get these giant cards. They're like 3x5 size cards. I think maybe even, I don't know, that sounds right. And they're of these robots, and they have two sides. They have their bot side and their alt side, which is a car, helicopter, whatever it is. And so you start with them in their alt sides, and then you're transforming. Each turn you pick one of them to transform, and then you have another deck of cards. And when you attack somebody, I say this robot's attacking that one, and his attack is 6, and your defense is 3. So then we both flip over 2 cards from our deck, and you look at the icons in the top corner. Some of them add to attack, some add to defense, and eventually you just knock out your opponents. You also can play cards as upgrades to the robots. They can have weapon and armor and something else. You can also play actions that do various things. It's really simple. Eric, your kids would easily pick this up.
Interesting.
It's definitely a game that kids can play. It's really fast. We're talking 15, 20 minutes probably. There's very few complex cards in the game at all. So I think for some adults, they'll actually find the game to be too simple for them. But I really liked it. The deck building is really easy. You can buy, pre-made decks. I think there's a few out there. You can even buy one that comes with a humongous card for Metroplex.
Ah, yes. Isn't there a Constructicon one, too?
Well, that's the thing. Then they made Wave 2. See, I didn't even buy Wave 1. I bought Wave 2, then I bought Wave 1 also. But that's not the point. Wave 2 came with the combining robots. So there wasn't just Constructicon. You can buy him, he's in a starter set, but I also have Predacon. I forget them. There's the 5 jets that go together. There's the Insecticons that all go together. I forget what their guy's called too.
Really?
But anyway, huh? Yeah,
I didn't know they did that.
There's like 6 of them. And so now that's a little bit more collectible, right? So the first set you can buy just pack after pack after pack. Who cares? You get some Transformers, you play with them. If you're playing with the combining robots, it's a little trickier to the point where I finally said, all right, I'm not going to keep buying packs. I'm missing one robot. eBay.
Yeah.
One of the Dinobots. I need it. Right? So you have to have the Dinobot combining thing.
Sure.
And they're really cool because they're these big cards, but they're folded in half. And so you sit there and you play with these cards, and once they're all in robot form and you draw another card, this one card will let you combine them all. So you unfold them all and put them together, and it makes a gigantic robot that's, the size of a piece of paper. So cool. And it's so fun, right? And I don't know. I don't know that there's even a ton of strategy in the game and in the deck building. I'm sure there is. I looked online and it was like, this deck is an amazing deck, but it had an Autobot and a Decepticon on the same side. So I refused to build it because they would not work together.
Okay.
I don't. But I mean, who cares? It's a simple, silly, fun game with really great artwork, and they got more sets planned. So I highly recommend it. Grab a starter set, buy a couple booster packs, and you're ready to go. So that's Transformers, the trading card game.
Okay, it's been sort of on my radar. Suzanne also played it. I think she talked about it a few weeks ago, and she liked it too. I don't know. You may have won me over.
So let's go to questions.
Tom.
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 Hi, Tom.
How do you pack your hats for safe travel? If you were stranded on a desert island with one of the aliens from Cosmic Encounter, which one would it be?
Tom, gamers want to know. Is that Eric's real voice?
And now, the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the game library?
Oh, right. This first one is actually not a question, but a comment based on something we talked about for a while. The things that got us interested in topics. So Jamie said, I just finished voting and for games that got me interested in a topic, and some things were obvious, like Twilight Struggle for parts of the Cold War, Sagrada about the church in Spain, but some choices may not have immediate apparent reasons for being on the list. For example, Monopoly's on my list for getting me interested in many topics, calculating probability of dice rolls and certain spaces, and that's really good because that probably is the same for me.
Yeah.
Calculate a return on investment based on cost of properties and houses and the accompanying increase in rents. For your information, says Jamie, green properties have their best return on investment at only 3 houses.
Yep.
Did you know that?
I did know that 3 houses is often the magic number. I don't know if it's true for all the properties, but 3 houses is usually a pretty good way to stick. Plus, it embraces the housing shortage rule, which is not a rule that I knew growing up with Monopoly.
Yes, I actually, in the above board, they had like a hotel in one space and nothing in another space, and I was like, guys?
Yeah, that's not,
this is
you can't do that.
An erroneous setup of Monopoly. I'm also a nerd. Anyway, Jamie says, of course, this also sparked a little bit of interest in real estate, but I was only in 6th grade when I got interested in the mechanics of the game, so applications of math was of more interest to me. Another example, Elder Sign, got Jamie interested in the Cthulhu mythos, something I said. Star Wars X-Wing, caught up with the expanded universe that I had not kept up with since in college. For example, looking through the list of starfighters and other ships available, I had no idea what an Inquisitor was, who the Rebel Aces were, or who used an HWK-290 freighter, and why that might be of interest for a game. So this sent Jamie to the Wikipedia.
Of course there's a Wikipedia.
Oh, you've never been there?
I've
Yes.
never been to the Wikipedia.
All this to say, too bad Chewbacca has passed away.
Yeah.
Anyway, all this to say, board game themes spark interest beyond the general theme of the game. They can spark interest in math, game design, or writing, or rekindle an old interest that has been lost for a while, all while building relationships with family and friends and sparking their interest as well. Thanks, Jamie. That's a good response.
Very cool. We have a question from Ryan, who is a little more than 6 months into the board gaming hobby, and Ryan's wish list queue of games to be purchased grows much faster than his ability to purchase them. Being so new to the hobby, Ryan says, the majority of my list includes games that are several or even many years old. I am quickly learning that many games simply do not stay in print for long periods of time, and I'm hoping you can help me identify some early warning signs that a game is either about to go out of print or has recently gone out of print. I know there is a healthy used market opportunity, but I have a strong personal preference to purchase games new and unused. If there is a way to know that a game is about to become difficult to buy new, I would be able to bump that game up on the wish list queue and purchase it before it's too late.
Oh, no.
A crystal ball.
I have bad news for you, Ryan.
There's no way to know?
The answer is almost all of them are about to go out of print. That's serious. That's the simple truth.
Well, sure. Yeah, it's rare that something is going to be reprinted more than, say, once.
There are 2 games that stay on your store shelves. The really, really hot, perennial, evergreen games. And the games no one wants to buy because they're not that good.
The ones that have been there for the past 3 years?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully the store, moves them off the shelves, right?
Right.
So honestly, I can't tell you how much to not worry about this. Just get the games that seem interesting to you.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think if there actually is some way that you could know, like, maybe if you made friends with someone at your friendly local game store, since they have contacts with the distributors, and if you have stuff that you're interested in, they would be able to tell you if a game is no longer orderable in their system, which would mean you might want to grab that copy that's on the shelf now.
You might notice there's a huge debate going online right now because stores will order games and they don't get them, or they're not sure. It's a big mess out there.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you really want new games, you might want to go to Kickstarter. Because you'll get the game when it comes out.
That's true. Conventions might not be a bad place to go because you can get new copies of older games. But as far as forecasting when things, like Ryan's looking for a way to bump things up in the queue because you need to get them now. You don't want to, given 2 games and one's going to be around for another year.
Vassal's law. Every time I got to say this, if the game goes out of print and it stays out of print, it's not, like 99% of the time, it's not worth your time tracking it down. There's so many good games. If I go to Cool Stuff right now, so let me do that. I'm going to go to Cool Stuff's webpage, and I'm going to look at some games that are in print right now that you can check out and get yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go down here and look, because I'm not actually looking at the right page here. So award-winning games. Well, maybe that's not the best thing to look here. Let's look at strategy games, okay?
Okay.
So right now you can buy 1812, The Invasion of Canada. That's a really good game. 5 Minute Marvel. That's not a strategy game, but whatever. That's a good game. 7 Wonders you can buy right now. 7 Wonders Duel. All the expansions for 7 Wonders. I'm still in the numbers, as you can see, going down here. A Feast for Odin is available there. I mean, it's just, you might say, ooh, I want this game, and look, and it's out of stock. Then I would just go look for another game. Or I might say that you could kind of think about the used market, because I can't tell you how many people in our hobby play a game one time and then sell it.
Yeah.
It's pretty close to new for many people.
Yes. I mean, I totally understand, but I also understand Ryan's enthusiasm and wanting to get a whole bunch of stuff like that. When you first enter the hobby, there's a ton of games that you haven't played yet. And it is, there really isn't a good answer as to when something's going to become difficult to find.
Yes, but that's the way life is in general. If we knew when things were going to become rare and hard to find, then things wouldn't be rare and hard to find.
Right. Yes. Publishers would love to know what exactly the demand is for their products, because then they would make exactly the right number.
You've got to just let it go. It's not a big deal. I'm telling you, there are many, many games that I do not have right now that I want to get for the Dice Tower library. And I got rid of them years ago. They're harder to find because they're out of print. But I'm not losing sleep over it. Because they really weren't that amazing of games, or they would be in print right now. Yes, there's exceptions for some IP games and things like that. But again, you can't even play all these games anyway.
All right.
All right, Ben has some very serious questions for us. Tom and Eric, what was your favorite component ever?
I saw this question, and I was trying to think of, like, really memorable components. The only thing that stands out in my mind is the fire from Forbidden Island. I love that thing. It glitters. It's that translucent, shiny plastic. That is a treasure worth searching for. I like that thing.
Well, my first response is I'm thinking the ships. I mean, I'm not the spinner from Life.
Okay, yeah.
The ships from Starfarer's Catan are pretty cool too. But if we're going to be very specific, what's my favorite component ever? The 12-sided die.
Okay. Yep, not as unwieldy as the D20, but has enough faces that it feels like something special.
Then he says, what's your least favorite component ever?
Yeah. I mean, the ones that annoy me the most are ones that don't do what they're supposed to do. So like a figurine that won't stand up. Or a box that doesn't actually hold what it's supposed to hold.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. You know, those shields that fall down all the time?
Oh, yeah.
Or, to me, it's I at any point in time, my least favorite component is one that should be better quality, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a board that's warping.
Or ink that is, it's been rubbing against something else. It didn't, dry properly, and so it's smudged.
Ben is not satisfied with this. He wants to know what's our favorite foldable board. I didn't know this was a question that it could be asked.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is the style of board that has a flat seam and not that stupid valley that the American-style boards have. But that's not specific enough for Ben, I don't think.
Didn't that really impress you, though, the first time you saw it?
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait a minute. Where's that stupid valley thing that my pieces get stuck inside?
Like, why aren't all boards like this?
Exactly.
What? But I'll tell you my least favorite foldable board. That's easy. That's from 7 Ages because it's essentially one of those maps. I don't know who decided to fold maps the way they fold them.
Oh.
But my whole life, I've never been able to refold one. I was like, people want to know why I like GPS so much because I don't have to refold it.
Yeah. So, like the early editions of Summoner Wars that had the paper mat that you could never actually get it to sit flat. That can get a little
horrible.
Annoying. Yeah. That's why people want playmats.
Playmats are the best, for sure. Except then you have to store them somewhere else. So
right.
That's kind of a pain. But playmats are getting better and better. Those ones that have the stitch edges and sometimes have two different sides are so nice.
That is very true. All right, David wants to know what we think about the Kickstarter approach to have optional buys during a campaign, such as with the latest, is it actually Come On now and not Simon?
It is Come On. They would prefer us to call them Come On. So come on and get with the program.
Okay.
I'm serious. That is what they want.
I know. Such as with the latest Come On campaign for Bloodborne with 41 updates so far to keep you hooked. It seems like a powerful marketing strategy to get us gamers to purchase more content by promoting expansions as only $40 or $60. Before you know it, though, you've pledged $280 as you don't want to miss anything, whereas if the original price had been $280 as an option for all in, many might have said no. Do you think it should all be up front, or do you think these optional buys throughout the campaign are okay, or do you not really mind?
Well, I'm looking at the campaign currently, and it's finished, and it has 23,986 backers and made $4,013,731.
So you'd say it worked for them?
I'm saying it works for sure. So yes, there's definitely that strategy. Get more content, buy more expansions, do this, get that, do this. I mean, I'm looking at the Bloodborne. I backed it for the Dice Tower, and under our secret backing name, and there's so much stuff that comes with it. And now, as I'm about to do the Pledge Manager, I realize there's like 5 expansions I could add to it, and they even made it so that if you buy them all for you add $250 for a total amount of $340 for one game.
Oh, wow.
For which you could go to Broadway.
Yes, you want to go see a show? You can do that.
See, I'm not convinced on this, and I'll tell you why. I just got my Batman stuff in. I'm very excited about this. I'm sure you've seen this, Eric, because it's all over Facebook. Everyone's showing off their amount of Batman stuff.
Everyone is excited about Batman, yes.
I got all this Batman stuff in. It's great. There's a big box of heroes, a big box of villains, a Batmobile, another box of stuff, another box of stuff, another box of stuff. There's tons of stuff. It's fantastic. And now I'm going to play the game, and I'm playing with like 5%. And unless I Batman it up forever, I'm never going to play with all this stuff. And yes, I know every time we say it, someone's like, oh, I'm going to play with all this stuff. Maybe you are, but you're probably then going to get sucked into the next $250 thing. Here's the thing. I don't care that Come On does this at all, actually. They can have all these expansions. That's fine. It's on me to say no.
It's true.
If they want to make this stuff during the campaign, go for it. If I don't want all of it, it's easy. I can just say no. And then I can have fun with the base game. I get a lot of base games in. I ask publishers when they send me review copies to send me the base game. Because I don't want to be fooled by all this extra stuff or even overwhelmed by it. True. And many times, like I just got the base game for Zombicide Invaders. Mm-hmm. It's fine. It's fun. I know that Zombicide Invaders did not come with what I got. I'm sure there is, a whole pile of extra stuff. And there was expansions for that one too, I think. And it's okay.
It's true. But that requires another change in thinking. I can totally understand the wanting, to go all in. But yeah, I mean, as far as David's question about this strategy of this is the way that the campaign is launched, that you start and you buy in at whatever the base game level is, and then they're like, oh, and by the way, here's this other thing, and you already in your mind have spent the, say, $100 for the base game, and so then when you add one more little add-on, it doesn't seem like quite as much. So certainly they're going to get more people to pay this whole amount incrementally than they would if they presented you with a full price tag right at the beginning. So it's obviously working.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the Zombicide Invaders now because I haven't looked at this thing, and it came with 6 different people to play. And I'm seeing here that there is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30. There's 34 other characters you can play if you had backed the Kickstarter. Holy moly. And then there's like another, and that's what came with it. You can get another bunch of characters, 4 more, plus a bunch more aliens if you had bought their expansion. And there's more and more and more and more. Holy moly. I'm really glad.
I love variety, and I totally get it. But how many of these entire lifestyle games can you support?
Here's what I think. I think your best bet with these is there's 2 ways to handle it. Let's say you buy all the Kickstarter stuff. When it comes in, take the base box and put everything else. Don't even look at it. Just put it in a big box and put it away.
Okay.
Play the base game for a while, and then you're like, ooh, I wish there was more stuff. I already have it.
Yeah, you could, mail it to yourself.
Well, okay, so, yeah, but you could. You could, tell your wife, give me one thing from that box. Or your husband or whoever. Give me one thing from that box. And they give it to you, and you're like, oh, I got a free expansion. Yay! Or, if the game's going to be popular at all, they're going to do a second Kickstarter, and you can back the stuff then.
Also true. Yeah, also true. I like the idea of like setting, like you could use it as a goal, a reward for achieving certain goals. Like if I complete that landscaping project in the backyard, I can open one of these boxes. If I fix the fan into the attic, I can open one of these boxes. Stuff like that. I like that.
Jim says, what do you look for when looking at a game on Kickstarter? History and reliability of the producer? Do you watch the promo videos? How do you get recommended from others?
History and reliability is certainly some sort of factor, but I tend to, when I do back a project, it's usually something quirky, and something I haven't seen before. So, like, Palm Island was one that I backed not too long ago, and that's because it seemed like something I didn't have and hadn't seen before and could see myself playing. And it just seemed quirky and different. So it wasn't as much about, I looked to see if they had a plan and they seemed to have their ducks in a row. But it wasn't that, oh, I don't know what other things this company has produced, so I'm going to stay away. Their pedigree was less of a factor than the uniqueness, the novelty of the project itself.
So for me, I look at the game and I say, I'm going to back it if I think it's not going to be in retail or there's a lot of cool stuff I can get at Kickstarter I can't get anywhere else, even though I'm kind of opposed to that.
Yeah, uh-huh.
I'm not a fan of exclusives, but I mean, it is what it is, right? So then I'll consider backing it. No, you got to realize that I back things for slightly different reasons. I back things on behalf of the Dice Tower Library.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm doing that, I'm thinking, is it a game that I can't get elsewhere later on for the Dice Tower Library? I will very rarely back first Kickstarters or new people, which sounds weird because that's the whole point of Kickstarter, unless I feel like they have a solid plan. There's a lot of flaky ones out there.
True.
So, but if something catches my fancy, I'm like, that's different. I like the idea of this. And for me, the difference is the theme. If there's a theme, I'm like, I like that theme. That sounds fun. Then I have a chance to back it. I will watch the videos sometimes, but a lot of those videos aren't very good. And I really don't like when the video is really good and it's like this movie trailer, and I still don't know what the game is about.
Yeah, they hire those voice actors and stuff to do the VO. And
in a world of this and this, and I'm seeing a cartoon, and I'm like, cool. Is it a deck building game? Is it worker placement? What is it? Jim also says, if you really, really aren't enjoying a game and you still have an hour of play left, what are some diplomatic ways to leave the table?
Ooh.
Well, I mean, if you're not a nice person, you got diarrhea.
You pretend to get a text from home. I gotta go.
Text Melody and say, call me in 5 minutes. No, I don't think I've ever done that. But I've played games that I didn't enjoy, and then I just ask, is everyone else not enjoying this? Because usually, like 90% of the time, people are like, yeah, let's back it up. But if everyone else is having a blast, and I'm the only person not enjoying the game, I don't know that I've ever been in that situation.
Yeah, I think there is a difference between asking everyone at the table, is everyone still having fun? We can end this now. And leaving the rest of the group. And unless the game is specifically designed to allow that. There are some games that have rules that say somebody can drop in and out, no problem. But I feel like abandoning the rest of the group is a line that I don't want to cross unless I'm totally... I have had to leave the table due to some sort of emergency. My son locked himself in the bathroom once, and I had to come home and help with that particular situation. So that has happened. But as far as leaving, I would just stick out the hour and try and make it as much fun for the rest of the group as possible at that point.
Jim's third question is, are there any games that you don't play solely because you find the theme offensive, like games that require you to have slaves or be otherwise immoral?
This comes up a lot. We get this question every 6 months or so, I think.
Right. It's the same answer every time. It's different for everyone else. The answer is yes. I usually will mention that in a review if possible. At the same time, I have found that sometimes I play a game and that was really fun. Then I think more about it like, Well, let us never speak of that again. I don't know. See, but there's an interesting thing. Does the game make you do immoral things? So, for example, I don't play Cards Against Humanity because you actually have to say vulgar things.
Right. Yep.
But I will play Cash and Guns because I'm not actually holding a real gun. It's just a foam gun.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that there is a difference there. But that's just for me. And I think the most offensive thing I would find here is if someone comes to me and says, I'm offended at this game and I would prefer not to play it, I think that's perfectly fine, and I should not give them any garbage over that. At the same time, I would prefer if they didn't get in my grill and yell at me for playing the game. As long as, I mean, I wouldn't be like, look what I'm playing. Woo, I know that you don't like this topic, but I'm playing it. Ha, 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 ha. No. And if I know someone doesn't like a certain theme, I won't even suggest it around them.
Right.
But if someone says, for example, we play, what's that game that just came out about the guy dying in the hospital?
The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr.
Right, and they say, look, I don't want to play this game because this is too close to home. My dad's in the hospital right now.
Yeah.
Of course I'm not going to play this around them. You know, because why would I? It just seems rude. That's like a guy who's like, I'm trying to stop drinking. I'm an alcoholic. And I'll be like, oh, cool. Hey, by the way, we're all going to the bar.
We're all going to the bar, yeah.
It just seems you got to be sensitive in that regard.
Yep. I mean, I personally, I try and stay away from the quote-unquote adult games. We've had a few that have been sent to us as review copies, and it's like, no, we're not going to play that, and we're not going to talk about it on the show. There's very few themes that I'll just run away from, period. But yeah, there are games that I've enjoyed mechanically that then later on it's like, that actually I wasn't very comfortable playing that, embracing that particular role. But nothing that immediately jumps out beyond the adult games. Elliot has gotten into board games about 2 years ago, has a collection about 200 titles large, and many of those have only been played once or twice. With a handful being played several times. I play with my partner whenever we have time, but that often results in just a couple of games a week, with the collection slowly growing on top of that. Elliot says, I wonder how someone with a collection of a certain size manages to actually get games played. Is there a system to try to evenly distribute game plays, or is there some personal guideline you use to determine just how long you can go between plays and still think of a game as one you want to keep? I feel like I play games less as a result because I'm sitting there trying to decide what to play, and I always feel bad about all the games I probably should be playing that I'm not. The struggle is real, Elliot. Yes, at some point, and this is one of the arguments that I've heard for culling your collection is at some point you can't play all the games that you have on your own shelf, and it's time to really make some tough decisions about what needs to stick around and what you want to hang on to or what you can get rid of. As far as a system, I don't have anything formal that I try and use, although I've heard of using like the 10 by 10 challenge where you try and play 10 games 10 times in a year to get some of those multiple plays going. I had in our game group, we had an unloved game of the week that we brought out every once in a while. It's one of the older games on the shelf that we brought out and tried to play as the first game of the night, I think a couple times a month to try and get some love for that game back and cycle it back into the rotation. But as far as anything more formal than that, it's nothing that I've embraced.
Yeah. I get that, right? I look at the shelf sometimes and say, man, I haven't played that game in a long, long time. I actually have a game that I'm messing with right now that is on my list of favorite games, actually. I'm being as oblique as possible, and I I wanted to play this game, so I pulled it all out and set everything up, and I was like, I need to remember a lot of the rules for this. So I went through it and I was like, all right, this needs to get to the table a little more often, but at the expense of other games.
Right.
I don't know. It's a weird situation that I think about a lot. I love playing new games. I play new games all the time. But I do so at the expense of not playing through all the legacy and campaign games. I really think I could be really happy playing some of these campaign games for a long time, just playing the same game. But I think I find greater happiness in playing lots of new games. I had to make that call. You know, you just can't, unless you are retired. And even if you're retired, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's all you did all day long, you wouldn't be able to pull it off. So, we'll let you know. All right, it's 2019. Let's see. In 30 years, in 2049, Eric and I will both, I'll be 62. How old will you be? 72. I'll be 72, sorry.
Okay, then I'll be 71.
Right, we'll probably both be in a retirement home at that point in time, or at least, we probably won't be working as hard. So we'll be
I still think we need to build that board game retirement community.
Well, yeah, we will be in there. Somebody's going to build it, right? Okay? Well, ask us then, and we'll have a better answer. Hey, that's the last question.
So it is.
Top 10 time.
Top 10 time. That's what it'll be when we get to the letter T. Top 10 time.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
Okay, top 10 games that start with the letter D as we continue through the alphabet. And I have to say, Eric, so far you've been getting softballs.
Have I?
But next week, or not next week, and not even next week, because we don't do next week. That's Mandy Suzanne.
Right.
In 4 weeks, E.
E. When E hits,
E's
that's going to
actually
be tough.
not as hard as you think.
Okay.
It's going to be J. No, J's going to be the first tricky one.
Well, I can't wait. It's like waiting for the difficult monster to show up in the dungeon crawl.
K would be difficult, especially if I force you to stay with English names. If you could do some German names, you get some more K's in there. But
That's true. Yeah. Well, who knows?
D's. So I didn't even look to see how many crossovers we have. We have a few.
Yeah, we have a few this time. I found this list a little trickier, like compared to C. When we did C, there were a ton of C games. And there are a good number of D's, but this was a smaller list for me, at least.
Whatever. I could make my top 100 with these. But be that as it may, let's get started.
Number 10.
Let's kick things off with a crossover. Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. For some reason, this did not make my short list originally until I saw your list, Tom. So I kind of stole this one from you. Deception, Murder in Hong Kong is a semi... Yeah, you know. It's sort of a semi-cooperative game as you're trying to figure out the identity of a murder and who... You're getting clues from a ghost and certain types of clues. There's a very limited structure for the communication. But, of course, one of the players at the table is the nefarious murderer and is trying to keep things secret from everybody. And you have to figure out who that person is, which is kind of cool, too. I enjoy it. I haven't played it very much. It's not one in my collection, but I do really appreciate the design. Tom, why is it on your list?
Well, same thing, actually. I mean, I could see this one even going higher. It's just such a great game. There's a lot of the social deduction games out there, and this one really stands out from the rest. I just played another game, One Key. It just was released by Asmodee. And it's very similar to Mysterium, where I'm trying to get people to guess something by me giving them another picture, and they have to figure out why I'm saying the same thing about each. It's all very, nebulous, ooh, what's Tom thinking? In Deception, there's the bit of that, but there's more straightforward. I said it was done by strangulation, and because there's somebody who is the murderer, that person's trying to stop everybody else from guessing the right answer, and by the very fact that you know someone's doing that actually gives you information.
Yeah.
So I really find this one interesting.
It's cool. That's Deception, Murder in Hong Kong.
Both of our top 10s. Number 10s.
Number 9.
Number 9 is going to show up higher on Tom's list, so I will just continue collecting dice and wait till it's his turn.
Why isn't my number 9 reprinted yet? Well, maybe I've heard it's going to be reprinted soon, but that's Dungeon Twister. And just to clarify, if it isn't reprinted, it's not that big of a deal. You don't need to go out and hunt it and find it anywhere. But Dungeon Twister and its sequel, which was essentially the same game with miniatures, Dungeon Twister Prison, and its many expansions, is a really entertaining game. It's so unique. There's very few games that are like it. It's a dungeon game where it's a 2-player game, and each player has a group of 8 people, or different fantasy people, and you have to get 5 points to win. It's a game. And you get a point by running out your opponent's side of the dungeon or by knocking out your opponent. And each person has a special ability. There's items scattered throughout this dungeon, and there's almost no luck, and it's fantastic. So that's Dungeon Twister, my number 9.
Number 8.
My number 8 is also going to show up on Tom's list, so I'll just go a little bit lower, and I'll meet him down there.
My number 8 is higher on Eric's list, so I'll draft him then.
Number 7.
All right, finally, we're going to talk about a game. The Duke is my number 7. This is an abstract game.
This is my
from
number
Catalyst.
11, probably.
Oh, cool. So the Duke uses these double-sided pieces, and whenever you do a maneuver with a particular piece, you flip it over to the other side. Each of these pieces has a little diagram on it that shows you what their movement pattern is, and then you move them and you flip it over, which changes the movement pattern of the piece. It's very chess-like, but also has a random aspect as you're drawing these pieces from a bag and bringing them out onto the board. You bring out one each round, I believe, each turn. Bring out a new piece, and you're moving them around trying to capture and eventually try and capture the Duke of your opponent. Fans of chess would enjoy it. It's a very interesting, twisty abstract with a bunch of expansions, thematic expansions, where you can add in like the Three Musketeers and stuff. Neat game. Number 7, the Duke.
It is a neat game, and I like it a lot. Number 7, I alluded to earlier in this episode. That's Dinosaur Island. Dinosaur Island, the Jurassic Park board game, as everyone calls it, is a game in which you are building your own park with dinosaurs. And every once in a while you think, why not make a little bit more T-Rexes and Raptors and things like that? Because they bring more visitors in, but there's a chance that they will get out and eat a few people. But it's mostly about cleverly getting genes and people and assistants and workers in your park and increasing your security. There's a lot of cool decisions. It's a pretty good, solid, chunky game. I like it. Dinosaur Island, my number 7.
I still haven't played my copy of Dinosaur Island either, and I need to apologize to Brian Lewis, one of the co-designers, because I know him from high school, and I haven't played this game yet. I'm sorry, Brian.
Number 6.
Number 6 is an older one called Dos Rios. It involves, as the name would imply, these 2 rivers that run through the board. It's an action point allocation game. I think you get like 6 action points. You're moving characters around and putting dams up on the landscape to divert the river so that it runs through farm spaces that you want the river to run through. But then you're trying to divert it back the other direction so that it avoids your opponent's farms, and it's kind of a neat, thinky game as you try and divert all these and get the river to go where you want to before the game is done. Tricky. Dos Rios, my number 6.
I don't think I've played this one, actually. My number 6, or is it my 6? I don't know. Figure it out. It's coming up later.
Number 5.
Number 5 was Tom's number 8. That is Downforce, which is the Restoration Games reworking of another D game, Detroit Cleveland Grand Prix, which I also enjoyed. For some reason, it made the short list. Both versions did. Downforce is the reworking. It's a racing game that uses cards to maneuver different colored race cars around the track. You might have a card that moves 3 different race cars, but you may only be invested in one of them. And how you trigger all of those to try and dead end the high movement cards that you don't care about, as well as moving your cars farther around. It's a very tactical, jockeying sort of game, and one I really enjoy. Downforce is my number 5.
I really like Downforce. It's a great, great racing game, and I'm so happy that mine has Mario Karted up. 'Cause
I haven't done that yet. I need to get a copy of Downforce to do that.
Yeah, well, then you also need to get the Mario. You have to buy the Mario Kart Monopoly.
That I have, so I'm good.
But do you have all the racers? Did you buy the extra racers?
I did. I had to. At first, I tried to get them individually, and then I finally just gave in and bought them as a cluster on Amazon.
Yes, but okay. So then, are you willing to either keep the games separate or destroy the one game?
Interesting. I wonder if I could just shove the Monopoly board in the Downforce box.
Why? Okay, so my number 5 is Domain. Domain is a game that a lot of people don't know about. It is from Klaus Teuber. So he's known for making Settlers of Catan, or just Catan as it's called now. But Domain is actually a reworking of an earlier game he did called Lowenherz. But Domain
Lowenherz!
Is this some new thing I don't know about?
I'm just saying Lowenherz forever. Go ahead.
Lowenherz forever?
Yes.
I thought it would only hurt for like a few minutes.
Please continue.
Anywho, Domain is the nicer version of it from Mayfair. In fact, it's actually one of it was done by Cosmos, right? But it's one of Mayfair's nicest produced games. It's a great game of where you play cards and slowly build out your kingdoms, but you're like intruding into your opponent's kingdom. So there's this back and forth going on. There's some really good juicy moments in this game. I like it a lot. So if you ever, you can probably get a copy of Domain for an inexpensive amount on the used market. I wonder if they'll ever reprint this one. It still feels fairly modern. Domain.
With the collapse of Mayfair, I seem to recall that you could still get copies of Domain in the, at conventions when Mayfair would have their like 50% off sales and stuff. I feel like you could still get copies of that. I don't know what happened to all of that stock when Mayfair collapsed.
Well, let's go to a slight tangent here. So I thought about these things too, like, Mayfair's games, what's going to happen to all of them? Mayfair really didn't have a ton of games on their own, and most of them weren't that good. They have the train games, which are very esoteric, and they had a few other games, which Z-Man Games is probably going to reprint. Domain, though, falls in the category of games that are actually probably licensed from Cosmos. So that license probably exists that someone else could get if they want to.
Okay, cool.
Number 4.
Number 4 is Discworld Ankh-Morpork. This is the Terry Pratchett-themed game with different victory conditions for each of the roles, but you don't know what all of those roles are. So I may have a pretty standard area control goal, or I could be someone who wants to set the entire world on fire. Who knows what I'm doing, and you have to figure out based on my actions what my victory conditions might be, and then try and stop me from doing it, while still completing yours. Plus, it's a Discworld-themed game, and the illustrations on this one are really, really nice. Discworld Ankh-Morpork, my number 4.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just play the reprint of this. I like the theme, okay, but I don't think the theme comes through that strongly in this game.
Okay.
My number 4 is shockingly on Eric's list. So the only thing I can think of is that Eric actually means, I'm talking about Descent, Journeys in the Dark, that Eric actually means the 3D computer game that came out in the 90s.
That was great. I loved that game.
Okay, so that is what you're talking about.
No, I was talking about the dungeon crawl.
Did you really
I appreciate the design.
That game always made me a little bit nauseous because it was true 360.
It was. I started playing that after I got one of the really cool joysticks with throttle and stuff on it. So I really liked fiddling with the 3D stuff. I was never very good at it. I died a lot, but I enjoyed Descent.
But anyway, this is a dungeon crawl we're talking about. Descent, the dungeon crawl, and the second edition of Descent. I'm going to make the call that you're going to see a third edition of this year or next year be announced at least. And they're going to have it's going to be app enhanced. But anyhow, I really like it. I like the different choices you have. It's not just always run and kill everything. There's different cool scenarios. There's so much diversity. You can make so many different characters in this game. It's a lot of fun. So my number 4 and Eric's number 8, Descent.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the system. It's not one that I have in my own collection, but I really appreciate the design and the choices that you have to make as you're playing these characters, and the opportunities for the Overlord to sort of play with everybody and make it an entertaining experience for everyone. It's really neat.
Number 3.
Number 3 was Tom's number 6, and that is Dixit. A very interesting game about, they call it a storytelling game officially, but using these lovely cards with surreal art on them and picking one and telling a story that relates to it. But then you're trying to pick out which card is being talked about after everyone else throws in their cards. A great, it's not quite a party game, but it's one that that's a good mixer style of game and gets you thinking in ways that you don't normally get to in many of these games. I still like it a lot. And there's lots of ways, with lots of expansions, you can get all sorts of different art for Dixit. It's my number 3.
Yeah, this is just a fantastic, really super fun game. It's really interesting. The artwork is great. I really like it. So I just like it's so free form. I can make up whatever clue I want, and it might just be that perfect clue that only one person gets.
Mm.
My number 3 is not on Eric's list, and almost probably no one voted for it in the People's Choice, so that's Duel of Ages. But I like Duel of Ages. It's fantastic. It's super cool. It is, it's such an anachronistic game where you have people from all different time periods fighting and running around and bowling and flying spaceships and shooting at each other. It's ridiculous, and I like it. I like it despite all that. I like the theme is good. I like it despite some of the weird things of it. It's definitely a game that probably isn't aging well either. But still, it's so much fun. Duel of Ages.
I did try, and we've discussed this, Tom. I tried, got a copy of Duel of Ages in a math trade at one point, and I just couldn't get into it. And
I don't even see, sometimes I'll be like, why can't this be on people's list? I get it.
Yeah.
Number 2.
My number 2 is Defenders of the Realm, the Richard Launius cooperative design, fantasy races all marching toward the center of the board, and you have to stop them, take out the generals, the one that belongs to each of the 4 factions. You've got the special abilities of your various fantasy characters. Some are really good at transporting around the board. Others are good at fighting certain types of creatures. You've got quests to go on. There's a bunch of expansions that I don't necessarily think you need. Maybe like the Dragon expansion is probably the only one that I would embrace. But there is a lot in this box. It's a very large box for sure, and it has a very strong adventure feel. And when you manage to win, it feels like you've really accomplished something. My number 2, Defenders of the Realm.
Yeah, this is another one that was on my short list. I certainly thought about it. My number 2 is higher on Eric's list because I was slightly less efficient.
And finally, number 1.
That's right. We're talking about Dominion. My number 1, the granddaddy of the deck builders. I still love this game. It's the simple engine building and trying to come up with a strategy with that particular set of kingdom cards that gets brought out at the beginning of a game. How do I make the most efficient engine, and how do I use these cards to my advantage? I love it. Dominion, number 1. Tom's number 2.
Yes, this almost made my number 1. This is just a fantastic game. I got the latest expansion. It's a lot of fun. But, going back and even just playing the older stuff, it just plays so smoothly. It's just a really good game. I really like Dominion. But my number 1 is Eric's number 9, and that's still Dice Masters. I guess I really like Marvel and DC Dice Masters the best. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Dice Masters is good. The 40K Dice Masters is okay, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Eric, they just announced WWE Dice Masters.
Okay, interesting.
So my next lineup that I have for Dice Masters, I'm going to have Donatello, Macho Man Savage. I'm going to have Superman.
Okay.
Spider-Man. and an Imperial assault vehicle,
All
and a
right.
drow.
Sounds good.
Try to stop me. But I just like Dice Masters. I just pulled out Quarriors actually today. We were looking at Quarriors, sticking it in the Dice Tower library, doing lots of things. And I like Quarriors, but I think Dice Masters did it better. Now, there's still not a very good way to store Dice Masters. Melody spent a good 5 hours today at the office trying to sort out Dice Masters, and we're still not convinced we have it done the best way.
Huh? What are you trying to do? Is it Plano boxes and stuff?
No, right now, everything's in a box, in a bag. So the way it works is they're just in there randomly in bags, but all the Supermen are together. All the Iron Mens are together. So I just pulled a random pack. I have Loki. I have 17 different cards for Loki.
Oh, wow.
Right, because of all these sets. So then we throw all these bags in this box, and you just fish around and you pull out a whole bunch of them, and then you draft from that your army. I think.
Okay.
I was going to put them in boxes and then sort them, but the problem is every time you get a new one, how do you sort that in? Unless you sort them by sets, which then gets more confusing because I'm like, I want to use Superman. Well, what set is he in? Well, he's in this set, and this set.
Yeah.
It's such a pain. So
Yeah.
But I still like the game a lot. It's a lot of fun. Dice Masters. My number one. And Eric had it on his list too. And number
I
9.
did. I actually missed this on my first pass-through because I have it listed as Marvel Dice Masters, which would have gone under M. I haven't played any of the other sets. But I've tried bringing this out with my kids recently and shown them all the cards. Like, look, you can play as Iron Man, you can play as Spider-Man, you can even play with Thor's hammer. And they haven't really embraced it yet, and I haven't been able to get them to play a game with me on that front. So it's slid a little bit, but I think once I get them hooked, they're going to want to play this much more often. With all the Marvel movies and the cinematic universe, they're interested in the franchise, and I think some Dice Masters will be in our future.
All righty. Cool. Well, let's see what the people said. Number 10, Deus. Which is that's pretty cool. I actually made the list. I think this is a neat game myself. It doesn't look that exciting, but it's fun. Number 9, Downforce.
Yes.
Number 8, Dungeon Pets.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that Dungeon Pets beat out Dungeon Lords. Dungeon Lords was actually number 16.
Dungeon Lords was going to be on my list until I remembered that I had missed Dice Masters.
Another one I was surprised missed the list was number 17, Detective.
Ah.
But happily, number 22 is Diplomacy. Okay, anyway.
Trade.
Back to the top 10. So number 7 is Dominant Species.
Okay.
Number 6, Dinosaur Island. Number 5, another one that was in my short list, Dice Forge.
Yes.
Oh, I do like Dice Forge. Number 4, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. Number 3, Dixit. Number 2, Dead of Winter. And number 1, Dominion.
There you go.
All these games that I just mentioned in the top 10 of the People's Choice are in the Dice Tower library, just as a heads up.
There you go.
So are all the ones in both of our top 10s, with the exception, I don't think we have Dos Rios in the library.
Probably not.
And Discworld Ankh-Morpork we don't, because I saw someone who was selling it, but they wanted an extremely high price for it.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I think people are still willing to pay the high price because they really want the theme and don't want to go with, what is it, Nanity Narking or something, Nanty Narking?
Sure, I don't care about the theme, so I'll be happy just to get the reprint.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's it for another episode, folks. Thanks so much for sticking with us. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Next week, we're back with Mandy and Suzanne. Until then, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 607, was recorded on May 16th, 2019. Mandy and Suzanne join you next week with a Shelf Staple and Victory Points segment, and in 2 weeks, Tom and I try to channel Suzanne with our top 10 roll and write games. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for spreading the word. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with production assistance from Roy Kennedy and Rob Seary. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Our heavily fortified clubhouse in the Belfry provided by Belfort. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, email us at Dicetower@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including Board Games Insider, Out of Game, The Broken Meeple, The Game Pit, Rolling Dice and Taking Names, The D6 Generation, Ludology, thanks Jeff, and Board Game Breakfast at Dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming.
So tell me all the spoilers from Endgame that you liked.
I guess, have we reached the statute of limitations on that one?
There was a statue?
Yes! I loved the statue.
Spoilers!